Um, Welcome, everyone, to our final budget meeting here on January 30th. Yes, come on in. There's another chair right there. No problem. Oh, we always begin our meetings with our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Tweed recognizes that our work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories, including the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize and respect the history, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, and all Indigenous peoples whose presence continues to enrich our communities. Miigwech. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the approval of today's budget meeting, please? Thank you, Councillor Valiquette, and thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Are there any disclosures of? Sorry, who did I say? Deputy Mayor Demarche, sorry. Because Jacob's on my mind, I have to say something. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Okay, we'll move on to my mayor's remarks. Just two things. I'm going to have to leave my phone on because my father's in hospital and I have a couple of things I might have to deal with.
Just for reference, your phone's right there.
Yes, thank you. Not like last time. The other thing is I had a text from Councillor Palmetier. Again, they're in a dire situation with the water having frozen for their cattle. They've been at it since 10 o'clock this morning. They can't get it working. So he's going to desperately try to be here as soon as he possibly can. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Yes.
Did you tell him to phone Aqua?
Right. Yeah, all right. Okay, my mayor's remarks. Excuse me. Today marks the fourth and final budget meeting in a series that began on October 29th, when we reviewed proposed capital expenditures. On November 12th, we examined our operating budget, followed by a joint review of both operating and capital on December 18th. Today, we approved the budget for 2025. We began this budget cycle facing a staggering 47% increase. Through diligent effort, we have managed to reduce this to a 15% tax increase. This increase is necessary due to rising costs, future planning, the need to rebuild reserves, and the replacement of essential heavy equipment. Once again, we have postponed pressing infrastructure projects, hoping that the province will finally step up and provide the much-needed funding we've applied for. It is important to note that a 1% tax increase currently generates $54,500 in revenue. A significant factor in this year's budget is policing costs. In 2025, OPP costs were set to rise to $1,284,000, an increase of $237,000, or 23.7% from the previous year. Excuse me. This alone represents a 4.4% tax increase. In response to the widespread outcry from rural and northern municipalities, Premier Ford announced that the province would cover the 2025 increase. However, there is no commitment for 2026. To mitigate what would likely be a heavy OPP levy next year, we are allocating 2% of this year's 15% levy into an OPP reserve. If the province continues funding in 2026, we will apply this reserve to reduce the tax levy. If not, it will help. If not, it will help absorb what will be an even greater OPP cost increase, as we would then have to cover both the $237,000 deferred from 2025 and any additional increases for 2026, which there are some. With this OPP cost increase, our starting levy, without this OPP cost increase, our starting levy would have been 13%. Another pressing concern is our asset management plan and the need to rebuild our reserves. We're beginning this process with a 1.79% commitment, or $97,500 to reserves. The provincial government requires all municipalities to conduct asset management plans, assessing the total replacement costs of infrastructure such as roads, bridges, water and sewer systems, facilities, equipment, and emergency services. This list is huge, and the associated costs are astronomical. Our 2024 asset management plan indicates that we should be setting aside $13.1 million annually for the next 15 to 20 years. While this plan is a viable tool for identifying long-term costs, The provincial government now requires us to present a plan in 2025 outlining how we fund these obligations. This is an impossible expectation. Excuse me, could someone get me a glass of water, please? Thank you. This is an impossible expectation, particularly given that this council has not received a single dollar from the provincial or federal government for infrastructure projects, unlike our southern neighbors or large urban centers. Historically, infrastructure projects were funded 1/3 each by federal, provincial, and municipal governments. Thank you, Kelly. Oh, sorry. Now we are expected to bear 100% of the cost. We'll provide an update later this year on how we intend to address this mandate, but it is imperative that both levels of government recognize the immense burden this places on small, rural, and northern municipalities. So without our 2% OPP reserve allocation and the 1.79 infrastructure reserve, our tax levy would be 11.2%. The province could assist with both of these levies, but has remained uncommitted on the former and indifferent to the latter. The uncertainty causes widespread concern. Additionally, 2% of this increase is attributable to repaying the previous council 2022 deficit. Unlike the federal or provincial governments, municipalities must balance their budgets. In 2023, we inherited a 275 deficit and were required to establish a payment plan. We committed to paying $90,000 per year for 3 years to settle this debt. Without this payment, along with the 2% OPP and the 1.79% infrastructure reserves, our tax increase would stand at 9.2%. It is worth noting that while Premier Ford provided Mayor Olivia Chow and the City of Toronto with $500 million per year for 3 years to help with their operating deficit, similar assistance was not extended to rural municipalities facing financial hardship. In 2025, our financial obligations include long-term debt payments of $383,000, internal debt payments of $307,000, and then the $90,000 deficit contribution, amounting to an annual debt and deficit payment of $781,000. This represents 12.9% of our projected 25 tax revenues. We are at a critical point in our municipality's financial viability. In 2025, 38.8% of our projected tax revenues will be allocated solely to policing, insurance, and debt payments. This council is committed to raising municipal taxes to a level sufficient to sustain operations while working diligently to stabilize our finances. The largest expense in our budget remains our 800 lane kilometers of roads and over 57 bridges. The latest asset management plan identified 3 additional culverts, now classified as bridges due to the new provincial guidelines. At our last council meeting, I voiced strong criticisms of both the provincial and federal governments, and I want to reiterate some of those points here. On January 19th, while attending the Roma conference, I met with Minister Surma, Minister of Finance, to advocate for our municipality's financial needs. We lobbied for approval of 2 key funding applications. The Housing Enabling Water System Fund, Intake 2, an application for the George and James Street Rehabilitation Project, which is also essential for developing a 40-unit mixed rental apartment and building a new 24-unit subdivision. Our other application, the Housing Enabling Core Systems Fund application for urgent infrastructure projects, including 3 bridges that can no longer support emergency services and the deteriorating conditions of Flinton Road. Despite Minister Surma's early encouragement to apply, both applications were denied. This marks our 3rd attempt to secure funding, and we are not alone. All municipalities in Hastings County that applied for the same funding were denied. Nothing in 2023, nothing in 2024, and now nothing in 2025. Minister Surma stated that there would be no funding for rural roads or bridges, which is particularly alarming for a community managing 57 bridges and 800 lane kilometers of road. This makes the province's recent decision to allocate $20 million from the Housing Enabling Core Servicing Fund to Prince Edward County for Country Road 49 repairs even more frustrating. While we do not begrudge Prince Edward County their funding, We question why our application for 3 critical bridges where emergency response is at stake was denied, especially when the minister explicitly stated there would be no funding for rural roads and bridges. We are the second largest municipality in Hastings County and bear the highest infrastructure burden. We have more bridges than Belleville and only have 100 fewer lane kilometers. Council remains committed to achieving tax parity with our Hastings County neighbors, as shown in today's budget presentation. When higher levels of government refuse to provide support, municipalities are left no choice but to turn to their residents. Transparency has been and will remain our priority. I've repeatedly stated that double-digit tax increases will be necessary for the remainder of our mandate. Our goal is to build a financially stable and vibrant community by the end of our term. However, to achieve true financial sustainability, we need strategic partnerships with both the provincial and federal governments. With 2 elections on the horizon, we need your help to ensure our message is heard. Thank you. Okay, Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, no, sorry. Let me go back to the agenda. Okay. Works. Okay, we're going to call Amber and Aqua Team up to walk us through their proposed financial needs. And you'll go up to the mic there. Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for those of you who don't know me, my name is Emma Hennessy. I am Business Development Manager for Aqua and support Amber and her team in the management of the business side of the operations and maintenance of the contract. I also just want to take a moment and introduce Allison McCann. She is our new Safety Process and Compliance Manager for the region. Not new to Aqua, she moved from another region, but we're very happy that she came over to give us a hand in our area over here. And she is our subject matter expert today on the new consolidated linear infrastructure environmental compliance approvals. So we're here to talk about that and then also to respond to any questions you may have about the 2025 proposed capital and major maintenance activities. So just to briefly give you a summary, in 2023, the Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks came out with new requirements under the, I'm going to call it CLI ECA, that's the short form of the infrastructure approval. So it's a new program. Historically, collection system maintenance was under the wastewater treatment ECA. Under this program, they've removed it from that ECA and gave it its own ECA. And then they've also now created stormwater ECAs as a requirement as well. So we already manage a portion of your collection system. So there's some activities that need to happen now under the new CLI ECA that we want to add in to the system that we already support. So financially, that's an additional $6,471 per year to maintain and operate the collection and distribution system with the new requirements. So those new requirements include some inspections, reviewing of current documentation, there's additional reporting requirements and additional labor to do those inspections and some of the additional maintenance. In addition to that, there's also some components that are one-time fees that require really to be taken care of in 2025 so we can meet any of the deadlines. So we do have to update the operations and maintenance manual. We do have to develop a significant drinking water threat assessment report and develop an assessment of wet weather flows compared to dry weather flows. So those we can undertake in-house with our current staff, and we're estimating that that would be about $3,300 for those 3 documents combined. That is a sort of cap. You will only be billed for the amount of hours and the work that it takes us to do. So we may not hit that cap. And just on that, we have already done this in other municipalities in the province. So the templates are created, which is how we can offer these services for such a low fee, honestly, because we're going to use what they've already done and update it to be specific for the municipality here. The second piece of that is the stormwater system. So there really isn't currently any requirements under the stormwater regulations. So now they're putting those in place. So we're proposing to take on some of those services for $14,589 per year. It's similar to the other, to the collection system. There's inspections that we have to do. There are certain activities that need to be performed after wet weather events, major rainstorms and things like that. We need to inspect all of the outlets and catch basins and things like that to make sure that there's no debris. So part of what we've done already with municipal staff is sit down and talk about what we can do as part of it and what the municipal staff can do as their part of it in order to keep those fees down. So there are activities that town staff can do that Aqua does not need to do so that it's keeping those operating maintenance fees down. That includes things like the grounds maintenance, cutting the grass, maintaining the berms, snow removal, as well as the cleaning out of those catch basements. If they need to be cleaned out, town staff can remove that debris and bring it to your landfill. So as well as with, similar to the collection system, there are some reports that we have to create in 2025. So that we do have to develop an operations and maintenance manual. We don't have one right now for the stormwater system. Again, some other municipalities in Ontario have already done it, so we can use that template. And the second one is a development of a significant drinking water threat assessment report as well. So for both of those to be done, it's an approximate cost of $4,600 per year. That's a really high level overview, so I'm open to any questions if you have any.
So what's the total cost of everything that you just described?
So the total cost for the O&M piece is $21,060.
Mhm.
And then the one-time fees that we're estimating to be around $7,900.
Okay,
So it's close to $30,000, but just under for 2025.
okay. 32,000. Okay, 32,000 is something I think what we have here. I just wanted. Okay, and so a lot of what you're doing is because there's been a new mandate that we have to do these
Yes.
things. Okay, this
Yes.
is something that you cite, always pushing further things down on small municipalities and fees that we have to pick up. So this represents slightly over a 0.5% tax increase. Now, this is something that we probably could fund from the water and sewer fund, Kelly.
So the portion directly attributable to stormwater, which there isn't a fund for, is the 21,000
Mhm.
or $667. The rest can be funded from rate. So the total impact on this budget would be the 21,667.
So just out of curiosity, when we do our water and sewer, there's a rate for water and there's a rate for the sewer, the storage system. So why are we not able to draw out of that?
There is no rate for stormwater, which is runoff and wet ponds and those kinds of things. That
There's
is
a breakdown. Okay, so it's just one set rate. Okay, so we're looking at an additional 22,000. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, go ahead.
To the mayor. So in stormwater system, it talks about labor to review and update infrastructure mapping. My question would be to the manager, doesn't that already exist? Are we asking somebody to do something that we already have?
Through Your worship, yeah, we do have mapping available. It's just updating more segments of it. And we do have an asset study coming back as well. So Aqua could be responsible for inputting that information as well into mapping.
So I guess just as I look at this, I'm just kind of curious, are there, it says like inspection of outlet ponds, catch basins and ditches. Don't take this the wrong way. Why does Aqua have to do that?
We could tackle something like that in-house if we knew the requirements and what we need to do for these inspections and reports. We likely could do something like that in-house. Aqua is the professionals at it and they would know what is required, and it was something that would easier fall on them than kind of having our staff go around and look at something and train them to be able to do these things.
I'll be looking at liability too, if something did happen. Any other?
Thanks.
Go ahead. Other questions? Okay, you're free to go. Thank you very much for coming by. And I guess, Amy, it was you that was trying to get in touch with me at Roma.
Yes.
That's okay. Sorry about that. No. Okay. Please do.
Through his worship too, this is kind of the high level cost of things. We've already talked to Aqua about Public Works taking on other aspects of this as well. So this would be the high end of the cost. We could also save some money on, installing signage and doing the maintenance already. We actually do have a stormwater cleanout program where we go around one half of the village in 1 year and one half of the next year to clean out all these catch basins. So that's something we do already do, but there is other little aspects where we could take away from Aqua and do it in-house as well.
So, thank you, your worship. Just to add to the
Are you
system.
on?
Oop, I think
Okay.
hello?
Yeah.
That the CLI ECA was actually issued in 2023 and there are deadlines into 2024, into 2025. So basically Aqua is just helping. What we can what we could do is take on these tasks just so then they're careful we could move to 2025 and make sure that everything's implemented. Right now it's not. So that could be an issue. So Aqua's offering to help the municipality get into the steps of getting into the CLICA. There is a lot of work that does need to take place, and there's a monitoring plan that isn't been issued by the ministry yet. So it's all kind of up in the air. So I think what the plan is that we would do a cost plus contract. We wouldn't charge what we're not using, just because we're not sure what's going to come out from the ministry in the fall. And then going forward, we would have a better set on a rate. We're just kind of using a higher value right now, just because we're not sure what the ministry is going to give us in the fall. Excuse me.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, bye now. Excuse me.
You got your phone.
Oh, so, it must be. Be it resolved. Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to, I should have had somebody table that before we started. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Fleeler, Councillor, Valiquette. Be it resolved that council accept Aqua's proposal for CLI-ECA compliance, and further that council direct staff to accept, which option are we going to go here? I guess option 1. So I just want to go back to that. Option 1, which is creating a new budget expenditure line for stormwater at a cost of $21,677.92. And then adding when I say option 1, I see there's proceed with both the stormwater and collection system proposals. That's right. Thank you very much, which is 21,677 and 11,000. Okay, all in favor? Oh my God. Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder to table the Blue Metric monitoring and reporting proposal update? Thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demarche. Over to you, Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is again, rate supported, so it does not have a tax impact, but it's furthering our compliance with the ministry. Any technical questions between Manager Reid and I, we're available to help.
Okay, so this would come out of the bag tech?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
good enough. So there's no actual tax implication. Are there any questions? This is something we have to do all the time. I think we've been through this process before. Seeing no questions? Okay, excuse me. Be it resolved, the council received the Blue Metric monitoring and reporting proposal 2025 report as presented. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, now, okay, we're going to look at the budget summary, tax impacts, and budget reconciliation. And could I get a mover and a seconder to table the 2025 budget for final review? Mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Thank you, Councillor Fleeler. And I'm going to take it over to you, Kelly, if you could walk everybody through.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think everybody in the room, we're all suffering from various degrees of cold, and we'll see how
Dry
long
throat.
my voice lasts here too. I'd like to begin by thanking our previous CAO treasurer, Gloria. These are largely her numbers and her work over the last year, along with our managers, and they deserve our thanks to get us to this point. Kate is here today as our in and out person, so she has, as we go through this, she can calculate the tax impact on anything that you wish to examine and give us an answer instantly. Having said that, we are all rather new at this, so we may require some patience as we work through finding the exact numbers, but we're in a good spot. So for example, the discussion about the CLI ECA,
Very good.
it's currently in there as 21,667, but as MA and Ryan explained, might want to take a slightly less number than that and see where they come back. And I suggest that maybe that's $18,000 to $20,000. And we'll work with Ryan and MA and Amber to see what we can do in-house as opposed to out-house. Sorry about that. So the way that this is going to work is we now have a motion on the table, which permits, the parliamentary rules us to be able to speak to it. So we're going to go through the presentation, then we're going to go tab by tab in your binder. If you want to make changes, Kate will be recording that and will instantly be able to tell us, where we are plus or minus in terms of the total budget. Then when we get to the end, it would essentially be the current motion as amended. So let's say there are 3 changes as we move through. The budget would be, the number in the budget would be amended to reflect the new number, and the addition of the 3 items would be included in the final motion. If that makes sense, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
And I want to take all pressure off you, Kate. This is the first time Kate is doing this, and so don't you worry about it, okay?
And
You got this, Kate. You got it.
I'm obliged to say she has laryngitis for the next 2 hours. So I'd just like to start by saying that some 40 years ago, when I was 9 years old, I went to my first budget meeting with the city of Belleville. And last year at this time, I presented what I assumed was going to be my final budget of my career. Deputy Mayor DeMarsh talked me into doing one more. And I did get a free coffee for that. But I think at that very first budget meeting, I was hooked on municipal work. And it's been my privilege to work on, municipal budgets for well over 40 years. And it is an important part of the planning process for a municipality. It provides direction to your staff and clarity to your community about what is important. So we're going to start with a bit of an introduction, budget context, current status, talk about our competitive tax position. Like everything else in this world, we aren't a standalone entity. This isn't Monaco. We aren't, or the Vatican. We aren't a city amongst ourselves. We compete with our neighbors for tax dollars and eyeballs of citizens and the quality of our services. So it's important to understand our competitive tax position. Also, what do your tax dollars buy? The average person on the street, I think, understands part of this, but we're going to try and bring it together and have an understanding of what your tax dollars do pay for. And finally, the budget review process, which is, as I said, we'll go through tab by tab. And as part of the budget process, we also have to review the regulatory changes as required. So that's part of it as well. So where are we today? We're at the January 30th, and as the mayor said in his opening remarks, we've been through 3 prior budget meetings, and I appreciate the patience of council as we go through those. And I just want to make the note that all this information is on our website. If anybody has any questions about any aspect of this, the answer may be in some of that on the tweed.ca website. If not, please give me a call. We'd be pleased to go through it. Kate might even help if her laryngitis is over. So what is a budget? And I think that, we talk about our budget at home. We talk about the federal budget. Essentially, the budget is the numerical expression of the priorities of the municipality. Without a budget, we don't have priorities. We've just got, the old saying is a priority without the allocation of resources is simply a wish. So this is essentially taking the view of council, the input of citizens, the regulations of the province of Ontario, and coming up with a budget to serve our citizens. So there's 4 parts to the overall budget equation, and it begins with the province of Ontario. And as You know, I'm sure you've heard it many times, municipalities are creatures of the province of Ontario. We're created at their whim. We can be dissolved, amalgamated, merged, regulated by the province of Ontario at their behest. So we work within a provincial framework. And a lot of times, you know, as we heard today, they created a new rule for stormwater management, and we're required to comply with that. Council, and this is pretty basic, straight out of the Municipal Act, sets the service level for the municipality and provides accountability. So essentially, you are the accountability mechanism for the municipality. And this council sets the priorities as far as service levels. And of course, our taxpayers, our citizens, you know, they're here to provide you feedback and input. These are the kinds of services we like. We'd like to see more of that. We'd like to see less of that. Those are all things that you take into consideration as you go through the budget. And of course, the CAO and your staff, you know, our job is to provide you with professional advice and to implement your directions, subject to legal or moral. We are here to implement and support council in the decisions that you make. So there's two budget resources that are in the presentation. If you have the presentation, I'm speaking to the people at home because council have seen these budget videos before, produced for you to help you understand municipal budgeting, because it is a bit of a different beast. You know, it's not the private sector. We don't operate as a business. We have to balance our budget every single year, and we've only got so many ways to get money to do those things, and we'll go through that in a bit. And how we do it is a bit different. Having said that, just like your own budget, we can't spend what we don't have. So these two videos will give you a good idea on A, what a municipal budget is, and B, how that translates to your home. So how does what council speaks about today translate to your budget or to your tax bill when you receive it? So a number of things go into this, and the one that I want to highlight is the fourth bullet down is council is required under provincial regulation to set property taxes in an amount that balances the budget. So as you go through the budget and the budget review and the three previous budgets, you know, revenues equal expenditures. It's basically a fancy way of saying that whatever money we take in, it can be expended. Whatever our expenses are, we have to account for in revenue sources. Which gets us to, you know, what are the sources of tax dollars? How do we pay for things? So number one is this year's tax bill. So that's largely what we're going to talk about today is, you know, what does next year's tax bill look like? Two, which is reserves, which is yesterday's tax bill. So money that the municipality set aside in previous years to pay for things in the future. Number three is user fees and charges. So you paid $185 an hour for ice rate rental, Jay? 185?
Yeah.
You charged me 195, but everybody else is 185?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a use. You don't want to see me skate. So that is a user fee. So that is essentially a direct tax. Now, for an arena, for example, that doesn't cover the entire amount of operating the arena. Typical arena, now we've done a calculation on is somewhere $350 to $400 an hour to operate. We sell it at $1.85. We're losing, you know, $2.50, $2.75 on every dollar we take in. So that's user fees and charges, and that's everything from you know, ice rate rentals to ball diamond rentals, everything that we do that has a fee. Number four are grants, and as the mayor eloquently stated in his introduction, we haven't been overly successful in the grant front. We are looking at more projects for 2025 and 2026 related to water treatment. But to date, we haven't been very successful in the last couple of years, but grants are essentially other people's taxes. And finally, borrowing, which is tomorrow's taxes. And we'll talk about borrowing as we go through here. But at the end of the day, you know, municipal budget is made up of taxes. There are different sources of taxes, but it's pretty clear that, you know, between these five sources, the one we're here to talk to a large part today is this year's tax bill and reserves and how that happens. The borrowing component is kind of baked into this because we have borrowing obligations. So just to give you a sense of, you know, what does the average municipal taxpayer pay and how does that relate to the rest of the world? This is a Ford F-150 available at a Ford dealer just shipped just to the west of us. The total amount of that is
77.
77,264. You would pay HST on that of $10,044, which financed over a 7-year term would be about $1,400 per year plus interest. So depending on what kind of interest rate that Ford's may be offering, 6.99, 7.99 seem to be fairly typical on vehicle interest rates these days. But you're going to be paying about $1,400 a year for the privilege of driving a Ford F-150 on the streets of our community. Now, obviously, if you're buying a Civic, that'll be less than that. If you're buying something more expensive, it'll be more than that. But just to put it in context, another thing you may want to look at is, what do I pay in terms of our cell bill, and what does that buy you in terms of what you're paying per year. So the average cell bill for an Ontarian is about $90. If you have 2 people in your household, that's about $180. So you begin to get a sense of what does your municipal tax, or what do you pay for services, and what do you pay for taxes on large items. 1 year of Tweed municipal taxes is $959 per $100,000 worth of assessment. So rough numbers, let's call it $1,000 for a $300,000 home. That'd be about just under $3,000. So putting it in context with other things that you are paying taxes on, or about $1,675 per household. So roughly speaking, the taxes paid on a Ford F-150 financed over 7 years is very similar to what you would pay, the average household pays in Tweed in municipal taxes. So looking at the budget as it stands right now, that's about $9.59 per $100,000 of assessment, or about $19.75 per household for the community. That's what the rate increase would equate to. So what's happened in the past 20 years? And we introduced that subject talking about asset management and linear assets for stormwater management. So that's all our pipes and the grounds manhole covers. I didn't coin this. This is an AMO term, but largely what's happened is what we call downloading by stealth. It's things like new accounting standards, capital asset plan requirements, and we're down to the last couple of those. Reduced capital grants, largely urban focus and combined with aging infrastructure. In 1998, the Harris government eliminated unconditional grants for roads and put that on the municipal tax bill. Direct billing for policing happened in 2003 or 4, I forget. And I apologize because I was on the other side of that argument in a municipality that had their own police force. So I may have inflicted inadvertently some pain on a future employer. Stricter planning regime, what used to take, a 1-page planning report, the province is now requiring a number of different steps to go through the planning process, and a number of different review agencies have to go through that. So the time requirement for planning is greatly increased. Stricter environmental reporting requirements for utilities. The Walkerton tragedy and the fallout from that, the increased reporting requirements for water and wastewater have been significant. And we pay for that through our contract with Aqua, and our ratepayers pay for it through their water and sewer bill. Increased healthcare responsibility, and this is a particular bugaboo of mine, but the province over the last 20 years has mandated that municipalities are responsible for 20% of major capital procurement for hospitals. The county of Hastings also has a very active doctor recruitment program, and just things like the increased service level for paramedics. The province continues to increase the requirements, which increases the training requirements, which increases the pay costs, which ultimately increases what the average citizen pays. Firefighter certification, and I think this is one of the examples. I just want to take a half a step back. I am not saying for 1 minute that any one of these are wrong. I think that firefighters should receive all the training that they need to do the job they need to do. And I don't think any one of us would argue with the fact that they need that training and that certification is a good thing. What is troubling about all of these things is that they end up on our tax bill and our taxpayers end up paying for it. The province waves a magic wand and we are required to fund it. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, Chief, but I 100% support firefighter certification. Having said that, it is a burden on today's firefighters and it's going to make recruitment more difficult as well. But I'm sure the chief has provided you with a number of updates on that matter. Increasing litigious environment, joint and several liability. This has been on the desk of Roma in particular, and the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus for the past 15 to 20 years. Essentially what it means that even where the municipality isn't liable, the municipality pays. And, you know, the deepest pocket always pays. And that has had the effect of increasing municipal insurance costs across the board. An aging society, yes, I am a member of that aging society, but it has increased demand on services, health and dental fee for our benefits for our employers, for example. Those fees have been increasing at between 8 and 12% for the past decade. And finally, just supply chain constraints and inflation on goods and services that municipalities rely on. Pumper truck used to be around 250, 275, is now closer to $1 million, $9 million. So and we look at these things and as they're driving down the road and you go, yeah, that's a really nice fire truck. And not only is it the cost, it's the delivery time. You know, we're now ordering things over 2 years out. So all these things combined put pressure on municipal budgets. And I think it's important to remind ourselves and citizens if you're listening to this or citizens when you're talking, that these pressures come one day after another. And I've only added 10 or 11 of these. I'm sure that we could put our heads together and come up with another 30. But the world of municipal government has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. Next, I want to take a quick look at a Excel spreadsheet that CAO Raybone had produced, and I think it's very informative to show you where we are and where we've been. I won't go through it line by line. That'll take a little bit too long, but suffice it to say that our total expenditures have increased over that period we were just talking about by about 65%. If we, and you can see in the fourth column over, the percent increases have gone up and down as we've gone through those years. Some years we've been below inflation, other years like last year, we've been above inflation. The message I want to leave you today is slow and steady wins the race. In municipal world, we know that our increases are going to be above inflation. The things that we deal with, petroleum products, to drive our vehicles, petroleum products that go into our asphalt, the cost of supply chain things, the cost of emergency services always increases more than inflation. If we had gone at 3.89% from the period of 2006 to today, we'd be exactly where we are now, but we'd have $8 million in reserves, or we would have spent that $8 million on other capital items as they've been intended to be spent. And so, you know, simple equation. At the end of the day, slow and steady wins the race. And as we've talked about, you know, we're not out of the hole in terms of where we are at, but we can see the top. And I would urge this council, this will be long past my existence here, and I'll be counting on Deputy Mayor DeMarsh to buy me another cup of coffee. But slow and steady wins the race. And a dollar we defer today is $2 that we're going to have to spend tomorrow. It's not a dollar saved. So are our taxes competitive? And as I said, we work in a world where, you know, people have the ability to move. They select places based upon where they want to work. I teach at St. Lawrence College, and they're 3rd and 4th year business admin students from around the world. And the first question I ask them is, what do you want to do with your life? And they all answer the same thing, or they've consistently answered the same thing over the last 8 years. They want flexibility in where they work. they want to be respected, and they want to have a good lifestyle. All things that are applicable to this municipality. The world is at our doorstep because we can provide a lot of those things. People, young folks, my own two daughters included, they want the opportunity to travel. They want the opportunity to explore nature. They want the opportunity to work remotely when possible. We offer all of those things, but we are in a competitive landscape. So looking at where we are in terms of per household total lot levy, basically 6.26 million divided by the 3,278 households. And we are still, the far right bar graph, we are still behind Marmor and Lake, Sterling Rawdon, Center Hastings, and Bancroft. So even though we've done a lot of work over the last 2 years, there is still room within our competitive position to make adjustments.
If I may too, just to emphasize as well, Kelly, Bancroft through the Sterling Rawdon, that's 2024
Correct.
rates.
Yes.
So they hasn't even doesn't demonstrate what they're going to be showing. So it goes to show you how, even though we're trying to catch up, we still have a ways to go from year to year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think too, when we begin to look at service levels, and Manager Reed and I will be talking about, the lane kilometers of road and the staffing and how we do, we're providing a higher level of service or have a higher service standard, not in terms of the standard we deliver, but in terms of the roads that we have to service, for example, than other municipalities too. So we are competitive in our rates, and we do provide a high level of service. Next, where do municipal taxes come from? So the blue piece, the largest piece of that pie, the 62.25% come from municipal taxes. So that is a big chunk. Hastings County, when you see, that is the amount that we've been talking about, because that's the amount within our control. About 23.5% of that, it goes to Hastings County to pay for upper tier responsibilities, and including social services, paramedics, long-term care services. And then the green piece of the pie in the upper left-hand corner, 14.23% goes to pay for the school board. So in terms of our competitiveness, and I'm just taking this off of the 2023 financial information returns for municipalities, I think it's safe to say that we're in the same vicinity ratio-wise as Sterling Rawdon, Center Hastings, and Marmor and Lake. Give or take $1 or $2 here and there, we're in roughly the same order of magnitude. To my mind, that means that, we're not overspending, we're not underspending, we're in about the same ballpark as other municipalities. Their total pie might be higher, but the percentages are about the same. So what do your tax dollars buy for you, and how does the average person on the street see their tax dollars being spent? And I think it's worth a comment here that, there's a lot of people that we hear from time to time will say, well, I never go to the library, or I never use the arena, or, I live on a private road. For us, water, sewer, and streetlights are all area rated, so they are user pay. The rest are paid on the general tax levy. So even if you live on a private road, the road that you drove through to get to your private road is part of the system, and you pay for it as part of the system. So in terms of breakdown, taxation, special charges amounts to about 31% of your total tax bill. Grants, we receive a grant from the province called the Ontario Municipal OMPF, Provincial Fund.
Partnership
Fund. And that makes up about 37%. Reserve transfers another 8%. User charges about 9.29, and miscellaneous about 13. So if you take the municipal portion of your tax bill, it is paying for roughly 1/3 of the services you receive. 2/3 come from other sources. So back to what are the 5 sources of municipal revenue? The portion you see on your tax bill pays for about 1/3 of the services you receive. We do, and this is the final chart after we consulted with the various community requests. These two are the final numbers that we have in the budget that you'll be reviewing today. So it does take into account that groups come to the municipality in large part. So for example, they're committee members working on a hall, an Actinolite or Queensborough. Those kinds of things are taken into account, and those are included within your budget. The allocation of tax by department, so getting a little bit more granular here. I think the main part of the takeaway here is the big yellow pie in the lower left hand, roughly 43.25% of your total budget is your roads department. Just over 800 lane kilometers of road, 57 bridges. That's what this department does. You know, in the winter time, it's snow plowing, sanding, salting, and in the summertime, it's maintenance and capital issues. So that is about a third. Down a little bit further, we've got community development, the arena, other recreations. So you can see the breakdown just to see what your tax dollars buy. And again, no one individual in this municipality takes advantages of all of those. But as a group, we work together to provide that for our community. What we have to sell to people looking to live is quality of life, and the municipality is in the quality of life business. So for a final budget review, this is your opportunity as we go through the budget to say yay or nay, plus or minus. Our good friend Kate here in the corner will be making any calculations. I think as a starting point, we should look at the linear asset request from Aqua. Right now, it's in at 21.667, which amounts to puts us at 15.4. We can reduce that a few $1,000s, and Ryan and his team can work with Aqua, or we can take it out and look at it as a next year expense. Having said that, you know, this is a requirement that's supposed to be done by the end of this year, and the threat is probably not the right word. What the province is saying is that unless you have these plans in place, we won't approve grant applications. So this being the last one of these plans, I leave it to council in terms of, you know, do you want to go with the 21,667 or reduce it slightly? And
Can I just ask a quick question? When we expanded the lagoon, I believe the municipality kicked in $1 million or something to that effect to match funding that we got. Where did that $1 million come from?
that was reserves,
Yeah, where in reserves? What reserve was it?
the water and sewer
So
reserve.
why can't we, I don't get this, why can't we pay for this out of sewer? We built a lagoon out of sewer.
This is the storm component, and the province has taken the tack that it's
Treated differently.
water filtration and wastewater management. And so the rain that falls and goes into the manhole is a different collection system.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor.
Your Worship, to the CAO, we are only, this is only a municipal issue or rather
Village.
village issue. It's not a total municipal issue.
I'm assuming that there would be some stormwater management in Queensborough, for example. Every hamlet.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
overall, it's a municipal issue, right?
I would suggest it's across the municipality, but because eventually it's going to include drainage ditches that empty into
Yep.
storm
Okay.
sewers, and so it is and there are some municipalities in the GTA that have taken to having this as a portion of your water and sewer bill, 8 or 10%. That may be a decision we want to tackle when we do our next rate review, but it is a different system than the waste disposal, waste treatment, sorry.
Yes, go ahead,
Your
Councilor.
Worship, one more thing, so Aqua didn't give us a hard number. We've talked about putting money in reserves, could we squeeze that money out of those reserves or no?
So Aqua did give us a hard number. It's 21,667. What they've suggested is that they could work with Ryan
To save a bit of money?
to save a bit of money,
Yeah.
and she suggests that could be a few $1,000s. So right now, we're transferring 97,500 to a capital reserve. So I think your question is, could we reduce that by 21,667 or whatever number council picks and remain at 15? And the answer would be yes, that would be a council decision.
If needed, like yeah, so I guess I don't want to add to the confusion, but so we talked about 15, so this put it up to 15.4. So I'm talking about the 0.4%, not the total. And like I said, if overall thing is save a few bucks, it might be 0.2 or whatever, I don't know.
So I see what you're saying. You're saying that if we're going to commit to doing some of the work, the amount is no longer 21,677. It might be 19,677.
Yeah,
And so that would lower that overall 15.4 to a wee bit.
So actually, what I'm saying is if we went in at 15 and we had to take a bit out of the reserves, would that be?
So the reserves are accumulating for capital purposes, so this would be an eligible item. So if you wish to make it a reserve transfer, we would add 21,667 to the stormwater budget and offset that with 21,667 in a reserve movement, which would leave us at zero.
And this reserve that you're talking about is the one that we're going to allocate 1.7%
Correct.
to the reserve. So automatically we're knocking down that reserve.
By 0.4.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're like riding a three-legged horse.
yeah. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, Kelly, just by listening to the public, there's a lot of anxiety in the public about reassessments that haven't been done since 2016. It's very, do you have an easy way? It took me a long time to wrap my head around this when I first got on, but like say Joe Public's house is assessed now at $100,000. The municipality requires, we'll say taxation 6.3 million. But Joe Public's house goes up $50,000 in the next assessment if the province ever decides to do it. But if every house went up the same proportionately, can you explain, like, and maybe a layman terms on
Yeah.
how that affects our taxation, if any?
So the easiest way to think about that is to keep your eye on what the average assessment increase is in the municipality. So when that the ultimate reassessment comes, whenever that is, and I suspect that there's an election in a few weeks that they might do it next year, although that would put it in an election year for this council, which creates problems as well. To keep an eye on what the average increase is in the municipality, and just to keep the numbers simple, let's say that's 10%. If the average increase is 10% and yours went up by 8%, your taxes are actually going to go down. If the average increase is 10% and your assessment went up by 12%, then your taxes are going to go up.
And now Kelly, the other thing is municipalities cannot use this as a revenue grab either.
Correct.
That has to balance itself out.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So just to the mayor's point, he's kind of on to what I was going with it. I guess I just want the public to understand, like, just because the assessments of your houses goes up, say, doesn't change the fact that the municipality only needs $10 million to run their operations.
Correct.
It doesn't matter if the assessments go up another $100 million, we still only need this much money to operate. And I think that's what the public
Yes.
is having trouble wrapping around.
So the total budget is the numerator, the total assessment is the denominator, and your share of the assessment is what your tax bills. And that's a horribly complicated way to say that if your assessment goes up by more than the average, you'll probably be paying a little bit more in taxes. If it goes up by less than the average, your tax bill actually might go down or will go down.
Okay, so back to the matter at hand. Do we take this 21,000 out of the 1.79% that we're putting into reserve, which is going to reduce that? Basically, like we're trying to build up our kitty because we're in big trouble come the middle of this year in accordance with what the government is going to be asking us to do in regards to our asset management plan. And then the other thing is we have some, I think the other thing is we also recognize that we have 3 bridges that we have to deal with. Okay, we have to deal with them. How we deal with them, what kind of solution we put forward is up for discussion. But we're gonna need money to do that as well. You know, so for our share, because we're likely gonna have to borrow some as well again. Like, you know, and so these are things, debates that we have to have. So that's why it's important that we start putting money into reserves so that we can start at least contributing what our share would be of any project, especially in light of the fact that we don't get any money from either the federal, provincial government, and that we're likely going to have to borrow. Mind you, the rates are coming down considerably, which is good, but still. I'm not worried. I'm just throwing that out. Nobody has to discuss it right now. So let's say we do it that way for now. Okay, what's been proposed. Okay, so we're sticking at the 15%. We're just and we'll pay for it out of that reserve. Now, is that, can you figure that okay? Yes, Jim.
Your worship, one more snowball I'll throw at you. If, so as we build houses,
Yes,
is that an opportunity for us?
get our more revenue, definitely.
Yeah, so I mean.
And that
if
you'll
there's-
see, if you, in one of the, I'm not sure if it was a presentation or in there, in our binder. It showed that we added like something like 20, 30 or 40 houses or units or whatever. And that means that's money that we didn't have before, that now we gonna have, so that helps build our revenues up, yes.
So.
That's taken into all of this, though.
So my question, if we have some new taxable units
Mhm.
this year, could we use that money instead of taking it out of the reserves?
That'll be calculated in your final, what we're doing today is what are our total expenditures? So in your final tax rate, we'll have all the information from Hastings County, the school board, and the final assessment figures, and that will calculate the individual tax, and that will automatically be built into it. So that 15% will likely be less on your piece of paper because we've had some strong growth.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So it's not something we have to add in, it's automatically calculated when we do the taxes. When Kate does.
Okay, so. Just want to go back here. Okay, okay, we've identified that for now. So do we read the motion to get it onto the table?
I think we already have the motion approved. No,
Not this
no, for the
one.
budget one.
No.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Okay, so continue.
So the next motion would be to include the 21,668 for the CLI ECA to be offset by an equal amount of reserves.
Okay. And
So-
the new reserve.
Yeah,
So we'll know that way.
the new reserve.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor DeMarche. All in favor? Thank you.
So just to be clear, we're gonna go through all this and Kate will give us a new number as we go. We can always go back and take something out or add something in to
Sure.
get to a magic number. So back to the presentation for a
Are
second.
you able to get that, Lori?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was on.
That one.
So I think the easiest thing to do is to start with user fees, which is your water, sewer rate, and all the user fees that we removed. That is tab 3 in your binder. And I turn it back to the mayor. If there are any discussions, questions, additions, deletions in tab number 3.
Okay, does anybody have anything that they want to comment on tab 3? If not, we'll move on to tab 4. I have no problem with what we are proposing and what we're looking at. I'm good to go. So if anybody's got any issue as we go through, please raise it. Okay, so tab 4 is okay. We'll move on to tab 5. Tab 5. This is looking at individual departments, and this is a fire and whatnot. Issue. I'll give everybody a second.
Are you gonna name each department as you go, or just,
No, if you want, does anybody have any issues with fire?
I had some questions,
Okay, go ahead.
not to pick on you, Derek, but you find my sheet too.
And let us know what page you're on, please.
Just gotta find it back. Here, hang on, Mark. Just gotta find the fire here. Where are you?
Fire starts on 5.1.1.
Not seeing mine are in order. Well, where is it? I know this.
You recall what it is, you can just speak to it.
No, I've got a bunch marked out here. I gotta find the page. There, where did I put it at the back? Anybody else got any questions while I'm looking?
Where's you on, you're in 5?
Yeah, before I did, if you had anything, yes, go ahead, Councilor Valley.
To the mayor, to whomever gets a CAO. So I'm just looking at replacing tanker 1 and saying that it's going to cost about $1.1 million now. We haven't ordered it, or we have? We have not quite $200,000 in the bank for that. It'll take us 2 years to get. So we're looking somewhere in the early terms of the next council of buying a fire truck for, I'll optimistically say $500,000. Right? Yeah. But we don't have any money for it.
No, and that is what we're gonna be looking at when we look at this asset management plan, when I was talking about later in this year. That's part of the thing, we're gonna have to be able to identify where we're coming up. To pay for that fire truck, the additional 500,000 you're looking at. It's gonna be a daunting task when you consider of that 500,000, we're looking at maybe 500,000 and we're looking at 13.1 million. Means we're gonna have to start cutting various possibly bridges, closing facilities, who knows what we're looking at in order to get that level down that we can afford it. We also have to have a better understanding of what the province expects of us in this process. And does the province going to acknowledge that for small rural municipalities, that it's not going to be feasible for us to be able to do that. I mean, when you look at what we're struggling right now, and we're looking at a 15% tax increase based on the 17.8% last year, and we're looking at it gives us about 54,500 from last year, 1%, and you're looking at 13 million. It's inconceivable. It's not doable. And so it's going to be a struggle. So we need more guidelines, better direction, and we're going to have to figure out and review this stuff. But you're perfectly correct, Councillor Valleycat. We're already looking at 500,000 for the next, well, more than 500,000 because we've got to come with each year here for us, and then 500,000 for the next, for 2007 when it's delivered.
And just through the mayor, just one, we will get a little bit of value out of the old truck too as well. Now I did a fair bit of research on like used ones from that era and stuff that are doing their anywhere right around the $60,000 to $80,000 that they're going for right now, and they may go up like the kind of the trend has been going up on them because of price of the new ones, obviously, or whatever, but that's just something that will help you. I mean, you don't know exactly what you're gonna get for it, but that's just basically, I've looked at a bunch of them on the used market or whatever, and that's basically what they're going from anywhere from. And then we've had some other municipalities that have got some older trucks that they've got on a bidding war type with them and got over $100,000 for a truck, like basically of that. So that's a little bit of, I know it's not good, but it's something to go towards that truck too. So to look at. So there is some used value in that truck. So.
I guess my point isn't so much about the fire truck. It's just about sitting around the table, the five of us, and trying to be forward thinking and prepare the municipality for what's coming down the line. And you've said it, there's an inconceivable amount of money that the government wants us to have in our back pocket. And I don't know. I don't know how we get there.
I don't either. I don't, and because when you look at this asset management plan, and it is I'm glad they did it. I mean, it's a useful tool. And I think it always provided us with some direction of what we had coming down the pipeline. And in our asset management plan, it shows what we're going to deal with in each year. But when you're looking at just trying to operate our municipality and then looking at replacing some of these things, it's impossible. It's impossible. And like here we are, we're talking about putting 1.7% into a reserve, which is nothing, because I just mentioned it's about 54,500 every time we add a 1%. It'll be a little bit more now with this next one, but that's what it was in 2024. And that means that's nothing. That is absolutely nothing compared to what we got coming down the pipeline. Right now, I think what we don't want to do is focus on getting this budget approved, and then we're going to have to really seriously sit down and look at what the province expects in 2025 in regards to a plan to be able to address the financial needs. And then we're going to have to, and we'll have to, I think we have to have a public consultation on that one, whatever we come up with as things that we may have to close or whatever in order to get that 13.1 down to, I mean, like, let's face it, even we got the 13.1 down to 6, we still can't do it. We still can't do it. It's not conceivable, unfathomable. So but we're going to have to show to the province that we're making concerted efforts in this, and we're going to say, there's nothing else we can get rid of. We're going to need you to have to step in. Go ahead, Councillor Freeland.
Your worship, just tell me to leave if I get going too hard here. But the Burlington Skyway, the new bridge was built by the people that used it. Paid for it. Done deal. We sent a resolution forward regarding the license plate stickers, which is, in my mind, a user pay. It's $1 billion a year that we could divide up among the 444 municipalities as needed, not necessarily give each one of them 2.25 billion or $1 million a year, but as needed. You put the money, if we had that money and we put it in a reserve, or the province put it in a reserve and just used it as needed, it's a no-brainer. It's a user pay. It would help us so much. You stated that the government expects us to do certain things. Well, I would expect them to do certain things as well. I think, I don't know why no one will listen. It's a no-brainer. We presented that. Councillor Valiquette presented a resolution that makes sense. We've put forward, I don't know how many resolutions, and in the past, it was a shared pocket of money. It worked. All of a sudden, it doesn't work. We completed 21 major projects, capital projects, paid for. No questions asked. All of a sudden, it dried up. Why?
Well, this council has had no funding,
No. And
no funding whatsoever. And just to build a little bit on what you're saying about the license sticker fee. I would not want to put it into a reserve with the government because as we know right now,
Be gone.
they give it out to whoever they want and we don't get our
Yeah,
share.
yeah,
I want our
so you would
allocation.
have to have
But
a,
anyway, let's
yeah,
move
yeah,
on.
and, yeah,
You're right. No, you're right. There's no argument. And did you find what you were looking
Yes,
for?
I did, yeah.
Okay, where are we? What page?
Okay, so this is in the latest addendum that we got, 14.3.1.
Oh, you're down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is under fire,
14.
14.3.1. That's why I couldn't find it, because I was looking on the wrong page. And if I may, Mayor, it's just some questions for the chief here.
Okay.
And so Chief, I'm just looking at historical spending on your department.
Mhm.
And I'll start off with line number 52, 421, fire inspection, tests, repair and maintenance.
Yep.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not, how do you say, I'm trying to hammer you here, but
Mhm.
historically, the spending's been about $12,000 a year. And our budget's 22,000. Is
So-
that something that some savings can be?
Yeah, Mayor, so this year they've increased, so we have to do inspections on our air test stations here twice a year now, which is about $2,000 a crack. Our bunker gear supposed to be tested twice a year, which has gone up, and you're looking at anywhere from the bill for like 3 to 4 years, like $150 a pair to go and send it out to get hydrostat testing, repairs, whatever type thing on it there. We've also have, there was another, we do our ladder testing and everything through this year, so that's due again this year. SCBA's, that stuff, they're starting to get older, so they're starting to get repairs on that. So there's that pays for all the bills and stuff for when you send an SCBA in to get flow testing and that stuff done. That stuff isn't really cheap. And like I said, there's also the through that is your pump testing on the trucks. Once your trucks start getting older, that pays for the pump test and repair on maintenance on the pump stuff for the pump, like pump testing. So that's why the increase this year, I did relooked at that, doing that, but there is going to be some increases here. Hydrostat testing of our bottles too, also for the air test stations. You'll have to get them done, would be 6 bottles, and you're looking another, I think they're like $300 a piece to get hydrostat testing. So that all adds up. That's why this year you'll see a big increase in that this year, that amount going forward for 25. And unfortunately, that's more stuff that they're asking for us for liability, whatever. So,
I have a few others, Mayor.
Yeah.
And again, Chief, I'm just looking at
Yeah, no,
just historic spending. The other line was 525.65 automatic aid. Now
okay.
going back 2 years ago, that was $7,000 and we budgeted 20 this year. Is that going to be another major?
So, yeah, so just speaking to that through Mayor, we also have our agreement with the lake stuff, so we don't do shore-based rescue anymore. So we are going to be sitting down with Belleville, this is supplying our shore-based rescue or water rescue and stuff. And that isn't there for the point to cover for that. Also for, we have our M&R isn't in there. It's not there. I think I haven't talked to them for a final agreement, but we do have a small increase for that there each year, I think it is. But, so that's going to be some cost, more cost of that, and with mutual or automatic aid too that we get from Stone Mills and stuff to cover the Morrow Bank area and stuff. There's also our increases that we could have this year. I mean, because there's a response time and stuff, they will be responding to more stuff in that area for us. So, and in the Madoc Township, we never received anything from that. They already do help cover the thing, but with the situation this year, the billing's been, anyways, so that's.
DeMarsh, I'm just not quite sure, like, this is the second time we've looked at this, the numbers.
But these are the final numbers I got back, so I'm reviewing.
Oh, they're the same numbers that we got.
I know, but I went through them again and I wanted to ask these questions because this is a big budget. I think it's important we ask the questions.
Well,
At least it's already
that's what
understood.
I'm saying is when we first dealt with them 2 other times, putting people onto this, go ahead. Nope.
Any more for that, Jamie? Through the Mayor.
Are you done talking or did I go
Yeah,
ahead?
no, go ahead.
I just see some of these numbers jumped out. I mean, that was it for those 2.
Kelly, back to you. You said we're on 5? And nothing else on 5? Let's move to 6. Roads. So hopefully there isn't anything there. Councilor Valley, that. When do we talk about our bridges? And what we're gonna look at doing there? Do we talk about that in budget or do we talk about that in a council meeting?
Through his worship, whatever you prefer, I guess.
Because there was talk, there's no way that we're gonna be able to put in bridges for all three of these particular bridges that were in question. And it was brought to my attention that two of them, we might be able to convert the culverts. And then one will have to be a prefab bridge, which will be the one in Queensboro. And so I was wondering, like, have we given any thought to that? And where is that going to come out of the budget? And but what are your thoughts? I'll throw that back to you. I don't expect you to have all the answers. I'm just tabling this because this is something we're going to have to deal with this year.
To his worship, these bridges, we have got new numbers for the replacement of them. For these prefab to go all in that direction, we would need an engineer's opinion on what we can do. And in the past, we have had some discussions about moving some of these bridges to culverts. I believe some were identified that could be turned into culverts. But I believe these three here didn't meet that threshold for whatever reason.
Okay.
I believe previous staff did look at something like this. I have numbers for these three bridges to go modular. And just my thought is just the depth of those channels, the width of those channels. To me, they would likely need to see modular bridges installed or any type of bridge that you prefer. There is some options with other culverts or maybe other bridges that we could look at doing that, but I think these, just the span and depth.
So what's the latest quote that you have on these three bridges then?
Through your worship, so we were given a couple different options through Tim Lee at Northern Bridge and Matt. Just for reference too, I believe most of our neighbors this year are doing these modular bridges. I believe Madoc's doing one, Marmara's looking at some, Sterling's looking at some as well. We have numbers for them, but I also want to put out there too, there's a lot of uncertainty with what's going on with tariffs and how those costs could be affected if those come into play as well. Currently, for the lower grade steel option for Rocky Altar Bridge, all in, we'd be $685,000. And that's with using municipal resources and staff to help do the installation. On these quotes, there is a quite high contingency fee just for things that may or may not arise in the construction process. But talking to Tim, I've been assured that these are on the very high end, so we could be looking at better numbers for those. The Kinlan Bridge, we're sitting at $597,000. That would be complete install again with our staff and our resources. And I believe I'd submitted the Queensboro Bridge before. There's been no change on that. But again, the contingencies are high and there's room for savings there. And that was at $700,000.
Thank you. You looked like you were going to say something. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, so this again is something that we're going to have to deal with. Because as we've mentioned time and time again, and even to people outside of our organization, ambulances can't cross these bridges, fire trucks can't cross these bridges, and I mean, although I know we've said, well, if there's 15 minutes or less around, it's some doable, but some of these are much larger than 15 minutes. The alternative routes around.
I don't have the numbers right in front of me. The one that would make most sense if I shouldn't even say this, put it off for this year, it would be the Rocky Altar one. There is other ways to get in and around there. Kinlan is so remote, and just with what's going on with Stone Mill's capacities as well. Currently, the only way to get into some of those houses is a 10-ton capacity. It doesn't help that our neighbors also have a bridge down to 5-ton, I believe, as well, and then ours at 3. And Queensboro too, with the uncertainty of Ross Bridge right now, it would have to be looked at.
So that's 2,074,000. Well, I mean, if we proceed with any of these, obviously, we're gonna have to borrow, and then when we borrow, as we've always said. Helps us today, but it straps council tomorrow, and then Kelly, I think we're approaching our debt limit as well, are we not?
Yeah, that's one of my last slides when we get back to the,
So let's leave that for now. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
so the 97,500 that we were putting into reserves would essentially be a first payment on a borrowing for these projects.
Okay.
But we just reduced that by 21,000. So, you know, whatever plan we come up with to present to the taxpayers and to the province, borrowing is going to be a large component of that. But you never want to be at your credit card max.
Okay, so you say we do have the slide later on that we can take a look at that. Okay, let's just put this on burner right now. We know this is something we're gonna have to deal with at some point. Okay, continue.
Tab number 7 is your sewer and wastewater services.
Anybody have any questions on those rates that we talked about and stuff?
And just recognizing that the motion was to create a separate budget for stormwater, which
Right.
next year will fall in the same discussion.
Okay, moving on then.
Tab number 8 is your parks budget.
Yeah, I think, like, you know, we really have to do something with that ramp too, eh? I mean, it's in here at the pavilion. That thing is a hazard. Yes, please go ahead, Jay.
We just found out this week that we got funding for the pavilion. So,
Oh.
yeah,
Beautiful.
39,000 and change. So that project will get started very soon in a couple of weeks.
Who gave it to us?
It's a small project for accessibility funding.
Oh, my lord. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
so-
Now, that was in our budget. Was it based on the fact that we get funding?
I'm not too sure. Gloria and I worked on it. We crunched some numbers and it was answered.
Oh, well, that.
Yeah, so that was
wonderful news.
fantastic news.
Hope
this
it
week.
was one of those ones that we were paying for out of tax dollars or something. 39,000.
Beauty.
I don't think so.
I
Jamie, do you know where it is?
No, but I see it here today again.
It's somewhere, but I'm not sure.
There was 2 requests from Kiwanis Club of Tweed
Yes,
under community requests.
that is wonderful news. It's quite a. It'll be down here. Community development.
Yeah, so if you look on page 1.8.12.
Right.
Ramp and front entrance engineering continuation, is that the project?
That would be,
So that was removed from the budget.
oh, we actually took it out. We didn't have money. What page was that again? Oh. Do you have any other good news, Cindy?
We bet you didn't keep it.
That's right.
Who does it?
Are there any other comments on the recreation? Jay, is there anything that you need to report to us on? Everything's good so far?
Everything's good to go as far as I know. Everything's We're good.
I'm just trying to find the breakdown for community development and Parks and Rec. It's section 8.
Community development and
I'm sorry, say that again.
9K.
Okay. Okay, good enough. So, okay, moving on. Yes, go ahead, Council Fleeler.
Through his worship to the, roads manager. You said that we need engineering, and yes, we do, for these bridges. Is there an opportunity to work with the modular bridge supplier to have them do the engineering? Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't wanna pay an engineer here and then pay another one here. If we could, yeah, I don't know.
Through his worship, I can reach out to Tim and see what his thoughts are on some of this stuff. I mean, he's a very experienced bridge specialist. He might have some good insight as well.
Okay.
Typically when we go and get any kind of information or talk to any engineers, there's always a extreme fee with this, even for advice these days. So, I could see what Tim can do for us or what his thoughts are as well.
Yeah, because I thought they came with the package. I thought they came with everybody.
I think so.
I thought it was a total package. So yeah, reach out and find out, because I think that they do all of that, or that was at least what I got out of the presentation. You weren't here. You weren't here at that time. Go ahead.
Through his worship, yeah, it is a complete package too, Tim. I believe you were looking at maybe other options. Is that what you meant? Maybe instead of putting these bridges in, doing a culvert? Is that what you mean? No, okay, sorry. All right.
Yeah. just
Yes,
the
no,
mod-
these are complete packages. If we were go to tender with a true bridge build, the design would be, $40,000-$50,000. And then that doesn't even get a shovel in the ground, so.
Yeah.
So you're right. It does include everything.
And your worship, if you go to Tim Hortons and you buy a dozen donuts, they're cheaper than buying them singly. So if we went with a package of 3 bridges, I wonder if it'd save us money. I don't
Well,
know.
it would. That's what Sterling has done.
Okay,
And Sterling has actually bought the bridges. Even though they're not putting them in,
yeah,
they have them. So that when they get money to put them in, they got them, because their big fear is what Ryan had just said. They just bought them last week. But Ryan said, if these tariffs come through, it's gonna have a major impact on these bridges. So
They've just put like a deposit down.
basically, they've given, the price has been guaranteed. I think they actually paid for it, Ryan.
I'm not sure whether or not they paid from, but I do believe they've been ordered and they're there, whether or not they did or not. But yes, because of these tariffs, I believe there was a bit of a red alarm going off in their ear and they went ahead and did it.
So, February 1st is Saturday, so we're going to,
It's almost tomorrow.
that's what I mean.
I would note as well that, there's 2 parts to the bridge. There's the actual bridge that they supply, but there's also the bridge abutments, and there may need to be changes in approaches, if there are physical changes. So oftentimes there are 2 engineering costs. One comes with the bridge, the other is abutments, and if there needs to be any grade changes.
What Northern Bat has been doing, though, is they've been expanding beyond the abutments, so you don't have to worry about the second one you've just done. We went and saw that installation in Quinny West, I think it was, where they were able to do that. Go ahead, Ryan.
And that's why you see the Queensboro Bridge with such an extra fee on it, opposed to these other 2, because the grade change that would have to be done, they would have to remove a certain section of the abutments that are in place and then bury the new ones behind it. So there is a lot of more prep work and something like that, and that's why the costs are quite a bit higher.
And the turnaround time on these projects? 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I don't have the exact turnaround time, but it is exceptionally fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
good. Okay. So we're on 10.
Tab 10 is your capital projects, so it goes through all of the projects there. With, for example, the Queensboro Bridge, 800, 400 in provincial funding, 400 from other sources. Rocky Altar, 400 and 400, but as we're aware, that provincial portion is not forthcoming, so.
Exactly.
And that was at 50% funding and 50% debt. We'd essentially be at 20% funding and 20% debt. 75% debt.
And the George and James Street project is out too, but we didn't use any tax money for that either. Does anybody see any project there that is out? A lot of these things are. A lot of the stuff is based on funding availability. Well, the other thing that Sterling has really bought into is the leasing of all their big equipment. Huge, everything, they're leasing everything. And their feeling is that if there's an issue and it's under lease and warranty, they don't have to worry about paying for it. It's paid for, and they can do the lease. And then if they have a piece of equipment that goes down, they automatically get a new one back right away. They don't have to go through this period of waiting and stuff. And it's I know we're not entertaining. We're looking at buying something off of YouGov or whatever you call it. Some if we get a good deal on something, but
For tandem, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
As far as equipment, I believe I spoke to that before, just on the leasing and the differences.
but no, they really bought into it. Okay, so I guess we're moving down to 10.5. I see we're looking at debt. I was just looking at 10.7.2. Do you want to pull up your slide on that one? The debt one?
Yeah. let me just go.
We're fast approaching Bancroft. Look at go to 10.7.2.
This is illustrating what's the same slide as 10.7.2, illustrating our total debt position. So we are still at a point where, we're below Bancroft, but we're well above Center Hastings and above Marmor and Lake 2002, 22, 24 numbers. So as I said, we're getting to the point where we're going to be maxing out our credit card.
And what number is that we max out? You call it's a percent of, right, of the
It's at 30% of your total
tax.
and we're at 20 some. So it's it's not to say we have to stop tomorrow, but
No,
council's going to have to take
continue to do this.
yeah. I mean, it's no different than your credit card. It's a one-trick pony.
And then Councilor Wheeler's just identified the total, the three bridges we were just looking at is almost 2.9 million. I'm sorry, could you just say what our max is in that again? Roughly?
Gloria had it in the package here.
So,
Yeah, the maximum annual repayment limit is 15% of own sources of revenue. Provincial maximum is 25, and we are at our max is 1.68, and we are at 375,000. So that's our annual payment.
do we have room for 940?
roughly.
And that's an annual payment,
That's your annual payment, yeah.
so we can do it.
There certainly isn't a problem for the next couple of years, but
Yeah,
the rubber's gonna hit the road when we start looking at what is the overall impact, because
totally. And I don't think the interest rates are gonna fall much farther now either. The only good thing is as if, well, good thing. It's not a good thing, it's a bad thing, but if Trump did do tariffs, I think there'll be a lot of investment in infrastructure. To
Yeah.
keep the economy going and whatnot. It'll be a time to catch up.
it's truly a glass half full
Yeah,
perspective.
yes, exactly.
Or empty.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
And then tab number 12 is your reserve position. That's your debt position, projected reserves. So essentially, we're at 1.227 million, but that's largely restricted funds. So that would be landfill, water, wastewater.
Mhm.
In terms of flexibility, otherwise, it's pretty much that 97.5.
When we look at debt limit, does it also take into account internal debt? Or is that
No,
external?
that's
debt?
just external debt.
Okay, 'cause we do have internal debt
Yeah.
too.
Correct.
I mean, we have a schedule for paying that back, but. Go ahead.
Speaking, you brought up the subject about internal debt. That's the question I was gonna ask is. Some of this internal debt, the bag tag reserve fund, is there an opportunity, I guess? The right wording is to be a little less aggressive here to help with the overall impact on that repayment?
Do we have to commit like we would to a regular loan or something? Like, are there guidelines which direct us on what we have to?
No, there isn't, but it needs to align with your capital asset plan so that you're not taking that reserve into a debt position. So for example, on the water, we're looking at upgrades to the water treatment plant. So if we're not paying, and I know this is off the bag tag, but we've also got issues with the landfill. But if we borrow from that reserve, we would likely be going into a negative position, which our auditors would not.
So we gotta make sure that we have money to cover the projects that we have coming.
Correct.
And so going back to what the Premier Demarche said, if we looked at each of these, what page are you on again, Jamie?
This one's 2.4 overall budget and tax impacts. The thought that came to mind, this bag tag reserve fund loan repayment is currently sitting at, well, 388,000, let's say. Like, is that something, Kelly, that we can kind of, I guess, like I said, a little less aggressive and maybe drop the overall budget impact? I think there's money in there, but I mean.
Yeah, you could, I mean, the numbers are here. Where was it? So what's in that account?
I'm looking at this one. I don't know what's labeled 2.4 on this one.
And
It's right near the top.
Yeah, so the waste site is sitting at 954,000. But that includes the money that we'd be putting in this year.
So I guess like 300, like I'm trying to help the overall picture here in the grand scheme of things. So could that be, say, cut in half and still get to where we need to be? I mean, that reserve is set aside for landfill closures. That's not going to be happening anytime soon. So could we be half of that and still be in line with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than your mortgage. If your interest rate goes up, you take your amortization period out a bit longer. At some point, the auditor is going to say that isn't reasonable, and I don't know what that position would be. But, if you added one extra year, it's probably reasonable. Anytime that I've seen borrowing from reserves, it's usually a 3-year repayment plan. And, if you take it out to 4, you're just making the budget tougher in year 4. So not to get too far ahead of the discussion this summer about how things happen, but let's take that amount that we're currently transferring to that reserve. When it comes off, that's likely going to be a good chunk of what you need to be putting aside into another reserve. So if you decrease that amount, you're just pushing something further along. So if it's 350, 350, and 350, the advice we're probably going to receive from your new CAO and treasurer is let's just continue that as a contribution to capital reserves. So if you decrease that, then it makes it tougher to
Mhm.
come up with a legitimate plan, and that's gonna have to pass the smell test, not just with our auditors, but with the community.
Any other questions? So as it stands right now, we're still looking at 15%.
Correct.
Because we made that one adjustment. But that 15%, it doesn't include a loan payment, which we can take from the existing reserve you said.
So that's essentially what the 97.5, which
Yeah,
is now
we'll cover
reduced
it.
by,
Okay, if we did those bridges.
Yeah.
So we're not really building up potential reserves.
yeah,
We are building them, but now we're taking them down, but at least we've got money that we're putting in, that we can do that with. I remember Gloria was saying that the provincial rates had come down again. Now we just had another 0.5
0.25
basis point drop with the Bank of Canada. That will that likely impact, you think, again, the provincial rates or?
it's not typically they're gonna match the 2.5 to the 2.5. And it depends on, your amortization period. So whether the Bank of Canada is seeing long-term rates increase, may mean the longer-term borrowing might actually go up. So it's never a one-to-one on borrowing for capital.
We can lock in that, yeah. No, not that I were aware of, I don't think so, no. See, the nice thing would be if the province would at least help municipalities from the perspective that we pay back the loan, they eat the interest for small rural municipalities. Because when you look at our payment schedule over 25 years, we're paying almost as much in the whole process as the initial loan to begin with.
Yeah.
So it would help us in that regard, and it would be a small thing that they could do. Another one of those things, and helping small municipalities. Anyway, but that's not here, it's not there, it's just pie in the sky. Okay,
Yeah, and
okay, well, that's good though, at least we've got that.
yeah, I think we're good there. I mean, the municipal best practice is to borrow on the half-life, and a bridge is a 50 years, so borrowing on the half-life would be a 25 amortization. So, I think just off the top of my head, we're probably fine with our reserve transfer. If we adjust that anymore, we're not going to be able to afford it this year.
Okay, Jimmy, do you have anything else? Jim? Sorry that Jacob couldn't make it. Peter? Okay. Do you have so do we go to accepting?
There was the, it was back. So the budget reconciliation still, it is part of the motion. Oops, that was the budget reconciliation. There we go. If there are any questions on that, I'd be purely making up answers, sorry. That's Gloria's budget reconciliation that gets filed with the auditor as per the regulation.
It's interesting, I think when people look at taxes and whatnot, they think that, it's only costing us the 6 million or whatever to run this municipality, but it's not. It's like another 14 million. To run this municipality's taxes, as you mentioned, only cover about a third of the overall expenditure. Do we have to look at other sources and and user fees and loans and grants. And it's too bad about the grants.
Yeah, and essentially what this is saying is that if we were fully funding all of our debts and all of our assets, our budget would be about 13.7 million.
Yes. And I think, even looking at when we used to have a third, and a third, going back to what Councillor Fleeler was referring to earlier, previous councils back to, I think it's 2004, have been able to contribute $20 million for a total of over $40 million in asset upgrades within the community. So if we had a third and a third right now, the 2 million we're looking at would cost us 700. This is going back to what we've been talking about, all of us. There's no funding, no help whatsoever, and it's 100% on us, which means it's 100% on everybody out there. And that's what makes everything such a struggle for us anymore, in trying to get these things done. Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Your worship, the word coming down from the premier is to put money back in the people's pockets. My wife sewed my pockets up today right to my belt line, so I got no money in my pocket. Anyway,
I know.
we need somebody to understand that we get 9 cents on the buck.
Mhm.
The rest of it's contributing to the federal and the provincial, and if they don't allocate that money appropriately, then we end up in the position we're in right now.
That's right. We're the last kick at the can. Now, Kelly, I think also too, there are provinces that cover community and human social
Oh yeah,
services.
Ontario is one of the few jurisdictions in North America where it's a
That's
municipal
been
responsibility.
downloaded, okay? And so the county manages that on our behalf, but we pay county fees for that.
Yeah.
I think same with paramedics.
Yeah.
It's another one. It's managed by us, paid for by other provinces as policing. So you can see how all these things, although it makes, at the provincial level, it looks good because they're working at trying to lower everybody's taxes. We, in one way or another, are still going to pay for it, but it gets down to our level and then our county fee, which is added on to our total tax cut. And we're paying for things that other provinces pay for on behalf of their residents. And so it is a struggle. It is a struggle. And I sit on Community and Human Services Committee, and that's a massive budget. Now, they do get funding from the province, but they still have to kick in a chunk of coin, huge amount of coin. And it's like, you get to a point, you just don't know what to do, and I want to echo that, we had double digit last year, almost everybody but one was at 9. Everybody had double digit last year. And we're looking at double digit again this year. And I think a number of them they might not be double digit, but they're going to be high 9, 10. They're going to be up like that as well. And then the other crucial thing is that everybody is looking at, people can't put money into reserves because they don't have the money to do it. That's the other thing. They depleted their reserves to fund the projects because of the 100% cost. And it can't continue. I hope our residents understand that. I hope our residents realize that we're doing the best that we possibly can. None of us around this table, not one, would ever think of a 15% tax increase, again, like 17.8 last year. But when we go through, we rely on our team, and they are skill set out there, and we come with a budget and we say, take that budget back, come back with your bare bones budget. They come back with their bare bones budget. We go through it with them. We ask the questions at the time, and then we have to make some decisions. That's in, that's out. But that's the budget we have today. And I want to thank all of you out there for working with us to try and come up with something that, although may be difficult for the residents to absorb, to agree with, it's the best that we can possibly do. And then we're going to get really into cutting back on service quality and stuff. And that's not the one thing we want to do. We don't want to jeopardize our roads or our bridges. The other thing that you mentioned, Kelly, is Although individuals might not use a particular service or a library or an arena or a ball diamond, they are the things that make your community attractive to other people to move into your community. Look at the building that we've got going on in our community right now. We've had the most building permits of anybody in Hastings County. This is amazing. Okay, that's happening here, which goes back to what Councillor Fleeler was saying is that's going to help increase our tax revenue. That's going to get us up there. And that's what we need. And that's why it's important for us to maintain these quality service things that are important to other people, and to ensure that that when they come here, those things are going to be there for them to use. That's what makes them happy. That's what makes them excited about moving to Tweed. And the other thing is, like, we're talking about a fire truck. Councillor Valiquette said, like, okay, we're putting money aside. 2 years it's coming. We had to come up with another $500,000. How are we going to do that? But we got to have it. We got to have it. Like, and this is the disconnect that we're facing right now, is that we know we have to do it. We want to raise money or set it aside for it, but we can only tap into you, the resident, for so much money to get us to certain levels. If we have to tap into you to get us to the levels that we need to be, it's impossible. It's impossible. And then, like, the other thing is we don't have anybody helping us with operating deficits and stuff, like Toronto. We don't have that. Like, nobody's giving us a dime to say, oh, don't worry about that. Overspend on that. We're going to cover you for that. We don't. We have to make sure our budget's balanced at the end of the day. It's a struggle. It's a struggle for small rural Ontario and small northern Ontario. All of our various motions put forward by Councillor Fleeler and Councillor Valiquette, for example, amazing support from all those individuals out there, all those different communities who buy into what we're promoting here. But unfortunately, it's not hitting home with those who control those purse strings. But what I guess I'm getting at is we do not stand alone. All of us in this county and across northern and rural Ontario are in the same boat. And you've been there, you've seen it, you know exactly what's going on. You've been in a number of municipalities as their CAO, and we are not we are not an anomaly. So I guess having said that and feeling that this is the best we're going to come up with, and we've made a couple of things to try and adjust, and also to justify why we're doing what we're doing, the motion.
The only thing I'd add to that, Mr. Mayor, is that the increase to the average household in Tweed is approximately equal to the check that Premier Ford has promised you, which I think is a cynical way to look at it. But his name is coming on a check that you're going to turn around and write to this municipality.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions, comments before we move on? I know, Jim, you can't land base them again. We've done enough, you and I together. Tag team.
I think we've got to Councillor Fleeler's credit. I mean, we can't stop, and I know there's issues with the land tax as well. I mean, we can't keep on going like this.
But I think it always goes back to Jim was always saying, we got to march.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think we're going to have to. I mean, things got to change. They have to change, because if they don't, it's like you were saying, like, what do you do? What do you do? Anyway, so what can we go ahead now with the?
Yeah, just conclude with, kind of the state of the municipality,
Okay.
which I think kind of ties a lot of these things together. We'll start with some of the good news is, the lagoon improvements give us the opportunity to grow. And I know we've got work to do on the water side, but we've got time to make that happen. And we're poised for growth. Building activity remains strong. Our mandatory asset planning is largely in place, and we approved the last piece of that. And then we're going to bring it all together to look at how we're going to fund it all. The development charges study is scheduled to commence this year. And the replenishment of capital reserves has begun at 97.5, but as we all know around this table, it's likely going to have to reach 500,000 before we even get to some sort of number that's credible. We are building a financial base, and that is good news. And we're still the lowest taxed municipality in our comparator group. So some of the cautions, our reserve position is week. Except on those mandatory ones. Staffing will be a challenge for the next decade or so. And I'm not speaking just on behalf of Tweed. This is just the general workforce over the next 8 to 10 years is going to be very difficult for everybody. Traditional borrowing and borrowing from reserves will limit our opportunities. The provincial government spends about 1/3 of their budget on healthcare, and that limits their ability to spend on other things, and another 15 to 20% on servicing the debt. And we're getting to the position where those numbers are getting bigger too. And the economic instability, supply chain challenges that are going to disrupt our procurement programs and delay infrastructure. I have no idea what's going to happen on February the 1st and what's going to happen for the next 6 to 8 to 9 months as the North American economy resorts itself. And we're going to have to be nimble on our feet to make sure that we can still meet our obligations. So essentially, the motion has not changed, although we need to add in there, if you're still in agreement, the 21.6, we would be saying increasing the stormwater for the Aqua report by 21,688 and withdrawing 21,688 from reserves.
The new reserves.
But it leaves the number at exactly the same spot.
Yeah. That was already tabled. Right?
Correct, but that was an amendment to this motion. So now it would be the motion as amended.
Okay, the motion is amended. Do I need to move in a second, or are we still okay with the previous one?
Yeah, no, you're still okay with the previous
Okay.
one, just voting.
So
on
that's the motion, as Kelly just described. All in favor?
We're in this thing,
Yeah,
we have no choice.
no. Thank you, unanimous. I know Jacob was going to be on board with this as well, so. Thank you very much. Let me go back to the meeting agenda. Okay, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to my fellow councillors around this table. I know this has been a hard slug for all of you, and I'm grateful for the attention to detail and everything that you put into this. Like I said, this is our 4th budget. Typically, we do it in 3, but this time we did it in 4 because we wanted to make sure that we gave it the scrutiny that it needed. And I want to thank again the wonderful staff that we have out there for your contributions in making this work the best you possibly can. And I'm grateful also for keeping your eyes open for any grant opportunities, which will allow us to do things that we might not be able to do as it stands right now. Can I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn today's meeting, please? Thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Marsh. All in favor? Oh, I thought you was. Okay, thank you.